It was a warm Saturday afternoon when Miss Dolores Freeman walked into the Westwood Galleria. She moved slowly, her cane tapping softly against the marble floor, her cloth bag swinging gently at her side. Her eyes scanned the polished displays, looking for the perfect gift for her granddaughter's graduation. Dressed in a plain lavender blouse and worn sandals, she didn't turn many heads, but to some she stood out far too much. Officer Rick Dalton leaned against the glass railing on the second floor, sipping his iced coffee with one hand and scrolling through his phone with the other. He was a part-time security guard who took his job far too seriously. The moment he noticed Dolores, he squinted, then nudged his buddy. "Look at that," Rick muttered. "Another one thinking this is the flea market," his friend chuckled, not looking up. Rick tossed his coffee cup into the trash and followed her down the escalator. Dolores stepped into a boutique filled with glimmering accessories and leather handbags. She smiled politely at the cashier, who barely nodded back. She moved toward the purse section, her fingers brushing against the material, appreciating the craftsmanship. One bag caught her eye, soft burgundy leather with gold buckles. She lifted it gently, examining the stitching. Before she could turn it over, a voice thundered behind her. "Ma'am! Step away from that!" Dolores turned, startled. Officer Rick stood a few feet away, hand resting on his belt, eyes narrow with suspicion. The cashier, sensing a scene, quietly reached under the counter and pressed a button. "I'm sorry?" Dolores asked, confused. "That bag costs more than your monthly rent." "Put it down," Rick said coldly. Dolores blinked. "I was only looking at it. I haven't done anything wrong." Rick stepped closer, towering over her. "Don't get smart with me. I saw you slip something into that bag." "That's not true," she replied, her voice steady but quiet. "I've taken nothing." By now, a small crowd had started to form just outside the boutique, curious about the noise. Rick reached for the bag in her hand and yanked it from her grip. "You people are always full of excuses." Dolores's expression didn't change, but her shoulders stiffened. "What do you mean by you people?" Rick scoffed. "You know exactly what I mean." The store manager appeared, trying to calm things down, but Rick waved him off. "I've got this." Dolores adjusted her cane and took a breath. "I'd like you to check the security footage before accusing me of theft." "You don't give orders here," he snapped. "Now, step outside." He grabbed her elbow, ignoring her wince. As he dragged her toward the exit, she stumbled slightly, her cane slipping from her hand and clattering to the floor. A few gasps rippled through the crowd, but no one intervened. Outside the store, he pushed her toward a bench. "I didn't steal anything," she said again, looking him in the eyes. "You're making a mistake." Rick folded his arms. "What I see is an old woman trying to play innocent after getting caught red-handed." Dolores smiled faintly. "You're sure of that, are you?" "I deal with your type every day," he replied without hesitation. "Dirt poor, acting like you belong where you clearly don't." She leaned back slightly, collected and calm, despite the public humiliation. "Interesting. You've already decided my worth based on your assumptions." "Lady, just sit tight. I've already called the police." "No need," she replied gently. "I'll call someone myself." Rick laughed. "Who? Your bingo club? Your social worker?" Dolores slowly reached into her bag and pulled out a simple phone. She pressed one number, waited, then spoke softly. "Martin, darling, sorry to bother you. I've had a little incident at Westwood Galleria." "Yes, that place. There's a mall cop here who seems to think I'm a criminal." "No, I didn't say anything. Yet. Didn't want to play the godmother card too early." She hung up and placed her phone back in her bag. Rick's smirk slowly faded. Who was that? She looked up at him, eyes steady. Mayor Martin Hastings. He calls me Mama D. A murmur ran through the crowd. Someone had been recording the entire time. Rick glanced around, suddenly aware of the phones, the stares, the quiet tension. Nice try, he muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. Dolores didn't argue. She simply waited, adjusting her blouse and smoothing her skirt. Within minutes, sirens echoed in the distance, but it wasn't the local police. 3 black SUVs rolled up to the mall entrance, and uniformed officers stepped out, not in mall security colors, but city personnel. Behind them, a tall man in a navy suit stepped out, eyes scanning the crowd until he saw her. "Miss Dolores!" he called. She raised a hand calmly. "Martin." The mayor pushed past the gathering crowd and knelt beside her. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, dear. Just a little bruised ego and a sore arm." His face tightened. He turned to Rick, whose mouth hung slightly open. "Do you know who this woman is?" the mayor asked him. Rick hesitated. "She said, this woman taught me discipline when I was a troubled teen. She gave me a home when my mother died. She helped raise half the men and women now serving in our city offices." "And you put your hands on her?" Rick stammered. "She looked suspicious." "You profiled her," the mayor snapped. "You humiliated her in front of dozens of people without cause. And from what I hear, you did it with pride." Dolores touched the mayor's arm. "Let's not create more of a scene." But the damage was already done. The crowd had seen everything. The video was already online. Rick took a shaky step back, suddenly feeling like the ground beneath him was cracking. "Your shift is over," the mayor said coldly. "Indefinitely." Dolores stood up slowly, accepting her cane from the mayor. "Thank you, Martin. I'll be heading home now." "I'll walk you," he offered. As the two walked away, the crowd parted silently. No one spoke. Rick remained frozen, surrounded by whispers and camera flashes. And Dolores? She didn't look back even once. Dolores sat in her sunlit kitchen the following morning, pouring warm tea into her favorite porcelain cup. The faint scent of jasmine drifted through the open window as birds chirped softly from the trees outside. Despite the calm around her, the incident at the mall played on repeat in her mind. She'd faced many trials over the years, but this public humiliation carried a sting she couldn't easily shake off. The phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. She picked up slowly. "Morning, Mama D," came the familiar voice. "Martin," she answered warmly. "You doing all right?" "I've had better Saturdays, but yes, I'm in one piece." "You know the video's everywhere, right?" "I suspected as much. It's going viral, and people are outraged. News outlets are calling. Civil rights groups want to meet you. Some are asking if you'll speak at the town hall meeting this week." Dolores stirred her tea gently, thinking, "I didn't plan on making a spectacle." "Maybe not," Martin replied, "but the moment found you anyway." She sighed. "Let me think about it. My purpose has never been attention." "I know, but your voice carries weight. Especially now." After hanging up, Dolores looked out the window at her small backyard garden. Rows of lavender, rosemary, and thyme danced in the breeze. For years, she'd poured her energy into cultivating life. In the soil, in people, in community. Maybe it was time to plant seeds in the minds of those watching. Meanwhile, Officer Rick Dalton sat hunched in a small, windowless room in the administrative wing of the security firm. A disciplinary review board had summoned him. His badge sat on the desk in front of him, stripped of its authority, reduced to a hollow emblem. 3 supervisors sat across from him, none looking particularly sympathetic. "You understand the seriousness of the situation?" one asked. Rick nodded stiffly. "You've been reported for excessive force, racial bias, and public misconduct. We reviewed the footage. There's no ambiguity." Rick's jaw tightened. She looked suspicious. "That's not how you conduct yourself," another replied sharply. "You didn't ask questions. You didn't de-escalate. You acted like a judge and jury." "She was just some—" "Stop right there," the third cut in. "That somebody has done more for this city than you could ever imagine. Her name is etched on the community center walls, the hospital board, and the scholarship fund you applied to and got denied from." Rick's face flushed. He had no retort. "You're suspended indefinitely, pending further action." As Rick exited the building, sunlight struck his face harshly. It felt different, as though the world had changed overnight. He pulled his hoodie up, aware of the way people glanced at him on the street. For the first time in his life, he felt truly visible in the worst way. Elsewhere in town, Dolores arrived at the community center. A quiet buzz filled the air. Volunteers setting up folding chairs, adjusting microphones, preparing for the unexpected crowd. She was led to a private room where Martin met her again, this time dressed less like a politician and more like an old friend. "They're all waiting," he said gently, "but no pressure. I'm not here to lecture. I just want to speak from the heart," she said. "That's all anyone's hoping for." Dolores walked onto the modest stage, greeted by a standing crowd. People of every age, race, and background filled the room. Some held signs of support. Others simply stood in solidarity. She looked out, her hands folded over the edge of the podium. "I never asked for attention," she began. "I'm not a celebrity, nor do I aspire to be. I'm just someone who's tried to live a life of meaning, quietly, humbly, and with dignity." The room listened in stillness. "Yesterday, I was accused, manhandled, and insulted. Not because I did anything wrong, but because someone saw my skin and made a decision. That decision humiliated me publicly. But worse, it reflected something deeper, a sickness we still haven't cured." She paused, letting her words settle. "This isn't about revenge. It's not about canceling anyone. It's about accountability, about asking ourselves why, after so much progress, these wounds still fester." People nodded. A woman near the front wiped away a tear. "I've lived long enough to know change doesn't come through outrage alone. It comes through consistent, uncomfortable work, through listening when it's hard, through owning our mistakes, not just apologizing when we're caught." At the back of the hall, a man entered quietly and stood in the shadows. It was Rick. He hadn't planned to come. He wore a cap low over his eyes, uncertain why he was even there. But something about her presence pulled him in. Dolores continued, "When someone abuses power, they don't just harm their target, they harm trust. They damage the very fabric we rely on to live peacefully." She didn't mention Rick by name. She didn't have to. Later that evening, Dolores sat on a bench just outside the center, watching dusk settle across the skyline. A soft rustle made her glance sideways. Rick stood a few feet away, hat in hand. "I didn't expect to see you," she said. "I didn't expect to come." She nodded, saying nothing. "I wanted to say, I was wrong," he said awkwardly. "I assumed, judged, and acted out of ignorance. You didn't deserve that." "No one does," she replied softly. "I've been suspended. Might be fired. Honestly, I probably should be. Dolores studied him carefully. People make mistakes, she said. But the ones who matter are those willing to grow from them. Rick looked down. I've never had someone speak to me the way you did today. Made me realize how little I know about real respect. Then start there, she said. Learn, listen, help instead of harm. That's the only way forward. He nodded slowly, then turned to leave. Rick, she called after him, you still have time to be better. Don't waste it. In the weeks that followed, the video continued to circulate. But it wasn't just the confrontation that gained traction. It was her speech. Clips of her quiet strength inspired others to come forward, share their own experiences, and demand change in their communities. The mayor established a new training initiative for law enforcement and private security, with Dolores appointed as community advisor. She didn't seek the title. It found her, just like everything else had. Rick, after facing public criticism and deep self-reflection, applied to volunteer programs across the city. Many rejected him, wary of his past, but one youth mentorship center, run by an old friend of Dolores, took a chance. There, surrounded by kids who looked up to him for reasons beyond his uniform, he began to understand what authority truly meant. One afternoon, as Dolores passed by the center, she spotted him teaching a group of teens how to repair bicycles. He looked up, saw her, and smiled. She smiled back. That was all. No long speeches, no grand forgiveness. Just a quiet exchange between two people forever changed by a moment. A moment that revealed what was broken and sparked something greater in its place. And in that small town, from a single unjust act, a wave of healing had begun.